Have you ever stopped to think that maybe everything you believe about reality is a well-told lie? That what you call real life might actually be a distorted, conditioned, manipulated version, served you on a platter since you were a child? This question is unsettling, I know. It sends a chill down your spine, but it's where true liberation begins. The world you see every day might just be a reflection, a comfortable illusion built by habits, fears, and beliefs you've never stopped to question. The controversy isn't in saying we're prisoners. It's in claiming that we like the chains. We cling to them because the unknown, though liberating, is also frightening. The biggest prison today doesn't have bars. It has screens. Today's cave is digital, seductive, all-encompassing. It's in the feed, the likes, the rushed judgments, the shallow certainties. We don't live anymore. We react. And this hyperconnection promised us freedom, but gave us anxiety. It promised us information, but addicted us to distraction. It promised us belonging, but delivered loneliness. And in the midst of it all, there we are, hypnotized, feeding a reality that exhausts us, but from which we can't escape. Why? Because leaving the cave hurts. Deconstructing the world you built in your head takes courage. And not everyone is ready for that. But you're here, and that says a lot. This video isn't about pure philosophy. It's about you, about how you've been living your life, about what you've accepted without questioning, about how you've let truth be shaped by others' convenience. Plato's allegory of the cave isn't just an ancient story. It's a mirror, a warning, a call. And if you watch until the end, something will change, not because I have the answers, but because you'll start asking the right questions, the ones that open portals. The ones no one taught you to ask. The reward isn't immediate, but it's profound. You start to see, truly. And once the light touches your eyes, there's no more pretending you didn't see it. Get ready, because in the next few words, you might find yourself. You might get lost. You might relive memories you didn't want to remember. Or you might discover that you've always been closer to the exit than you imagined. This journey is intimate. It's intense. It's yours. And every step will demand something from you. Attention, presence, surrender. But in the end, I promise you one thing. You won't be the same. Not like magic, but like someone waking from a dream and finally starting to live with their eyes open. The only question left now is, are you ready to leave the cave? Sometimes it takes courage to admit that most of what we believe to be true is just shadows on the wall. And when I say shadows, I'm not talking about something mystical or spiritual, but about those beliefs we inherit from family, school, television that end up guiding us, even if they're outdated, limited, or simply wrong. It's like growing up hearing that money is dirty and, years later, finding yourself turning down opportunities without even understanding why. Plato's cave is a physical place. It's a state of mind. And the scariest part? Almost no one realizes they're inside it. Daily life distracts us with urgencies, bills, and distractions. And little by little, we stop questioning. Think about it. How many times have you been sure of something and, when confronted with another perspective, felt discomfort? That discomfort isn't a mistake. It's a sign, an invitation to look beyond the shadow. We grow up conditioned, thinking that reality is what we learned in our early years. But it's not. That's just the wall of the cave. The reflection, the echo of voices that aren't yours. Want an example? Try changing your opinion publicly on any controversial topic. Instead of acceptance, you'll receive judgment. Why? Because leaving the cave threatens those still chained inside it. And the most curious thing, the deeper you go into the truth, the lonelier the path may seem. But there's something beautiful in that solitude. It reveals a freedom few know. When you start to see that much of what you were taught was just a projection, space opens up for something new. It's not about rejecting your roots, but about watering your own discernment. It's like that moment when someone shows you there's another way to deal with your anxiety that doesn't involve just medication. And for the first time, you feel like you're truly breathing. That first step out of the cave is timid, but revolutionary. And it always starts with a simple act: doubt. And when doubt is welcomed, it becomes a portal. But are we ready to cross it? The first impact of light hurts. Literally. Imagine spending your whole life in a dark environment. where the only reference to reality is shadows dancing on a wall. Suddenly, you're dragged out, or worse, you decide to leave on your own. What happens? The light blinds, dazzles, irritates. You want to run back to the comfort of the shadows. And this isn't a metaphor, it's almost physiological. Because the truth isn't pretty when you first see it. It exposes, deconstructs, messes up everything that seemed organized inside you. Most people don't want truth, they want relief. But the truth, my friend, rarely offers immediate comfort. And you know what's most challenging? It's not the pain of seeing the light, but the discomfort of realizing how much you've lived believing in lies. It's a wound to your pride, an internal rupture. How could I not see this before? That's what many ask themselves. And that's where many give up, because it takes maturity to look in the mirror and admit that you were, for a long time, a happy prisoner. The chains were invisible, but they existed, and there's no shame in that. On the contrary, awakening is for the few precisely, because it hurts, but it also heals. It heals the illusion, the ignorance, the inflated ego of those who thought they knew too much. The light, though uncomfortable, is the only thing that reveals what truly exists. And when your eyes finally adjust to this clarity, everything changes. You start noticing details that were once invisible. You question habits, friendships, desires that no longer make sense. And that's scary, because living awake is much more exhausting than sleeping peacefully inside the cave. But it's also more real, lighter, freer. From then on, every choice you make stops being automatic. You start acting with awareness. You start saying no with conviction. You start protecting yourself from empty relationships. You start leaving behind what once seemed essential. And in this process of rediscovery, a new question arises. What now with all that I'm seeing? The answer comes with the next step. Few people talk about what happens after you awaken, because leaving the cave is hard, but try go back inside to free others is almost impossible. And more than that, it's painful. You return excited, full of light in your eyes, thinking you'll be welcomed as a hero, that others will thank you for showing the way. But what you find is resistance, mockery, accusation. No one wants to hear they've been deceived. No one wants to let go of what little they have, even if it's an illusion, to risk something they've never seen. And then you realize ignorance has its own chains, and many are too comfortable to be broken. The return is lonely. You try to explain, try to show what you saw, try to talk about the sky, the colors, the sound of birds. But the looks you get are of distrust, as if you've gone mad. Because for those who only know shadows, light seems like madness. And in that moment, many give up. They feel betrayed, rejected, hurt, and they start doubting even their own lucidity. Did I really see what I thought I saw? Is it worth trying to wake those who don't want to wake? This doubt is a threshold between continuing alone on the path of truth, or giving in and returning to the darkness, trying to fit back into a space where you no longer belong. But there's a purpose in trying, even if it hurts, even if the response is silence or criticism, because at some point, someone listens. Someone feels that familiar discomfort. Someone starts questioning, and it's for that someone that it's worth continuing to speak. Showing the way out of the cave isn't about imposing anything. It's about lighting small sparks. It's about living with truth and letting your life reflect the world you discovered outside. You don't change anyone with words. You change with presence, with consistency, with patience. And in the midst of this process, another stage of awakening is born. Learning to deal with those still asleep without judging them. Because every prisoner needs, first, to want to be free. If Plato were alive today, maybe his cave would have Wi-Fi. Maybe the shadows would be notifications, short videos, distorted headlines, promises of instant happiness. The truth is, we've traded iron chains for invisible algorithms. We're more connected than ever, and paradoxically, more lost too. We spend hours scrolling screens in search of meaning, approval, distraction. And in this digital routine, we keep accepting pre-packaged truths ready-made, served with a dopamine bow. The shadows keep dancing on the wall, but now they have filters, soundtracks, and millions of likes. And the worst part, we think we're choosing what we see, but it's the opposite. We're being chosen, shaped, addicted. This isn't about demonizing technology, but recognizing the new kind of cave we place ourselves in. That cycle where we wake up and check our phones before even opening the window. That impulse to validate every experience with a photo, a post, a reaction. With every click, another step toward anesthesia. And we don't realize that, little by little, we stop thinking for ourselves, stop questioning, stop feeling. We're trained to react quickly, to consume without digesting, to opine without reflecting. And in this fast-paced rhythm, what we lose most is depth. Shallow relationships, shallow thoughts, shallow desires. And the shallower the world, the harder it is to see what's deep. But it's possible to break this cycle. Uninstalling an app can be more liberating than breaking a chain. Silencing notifications can be an act of rebellion. Stopping for 5 minutes and simply breathing, without stimuli, without tasks, without goals, can be the first step towards seeing the light again. Because every cave starts with an innocent distraction, and every awakening starts with a conscious gesture. Maybe today, the biggest challenge isn't escaping a physical cave, but escaping the mental prison of being always on. Freedom, in this context, isn't about distancing yourself from the world, but about returning to belong to yourself. And that's where true clarity begins to emerge. Few talk about the pain that exists in awakening, not the pain of shock, nor of loneliness, but that subtler, almost silent pain of realizing that what once made you feel good no longer does. That bittersweet feeling of looking back and seeing that certain friendships, places, hobbies, and even old dreams no longer fit the new you. It's confusing. It feels like something's wrong. But I always like this. You think, only now it feels small, artificial, empty, like tight shoes that once fit. Leaving the cave comes with this rupture, the need to leave behind what no longer sustains your truth. And this process of letting go is terrifying, because the familiar, even if limiting, is comfortable. The old world might have been toxic, but it was known. The new one is unexplored. You don't yet know who will be by your side. You don't yet know where you'll end up. It's like crossing a bridge that builds itself as you walk. And with every step, insecurities arise. Am I being radical? What if I'm idealizing too much? What if I regret it? These questions come with force, especially when others start calling you strange, pretentious, different. The truth is, growing spiritually, emotionally, philosophically, is an act of courage that not everyone will understand. But there's beauty in that pain, because it shows you're moving, you're growing, you're reconnecting with parts of yourself buried under others' expectations. Abandoning what was familiar is like cleaning an old house. It raises dust, messes everything up, takes work. But only after that can you see the light coming through the windows. And sooner or later, that light touches other areas of your life. You start eating better, speaking more clearly, saying no without guilt, and without realizing it, you start rebuilding your cave, only now with windows, open doors, and space to breathe. But this is still just the beginning, because the greatest transformation is yet to come. There comes a moment after so much deconstruction when silence starts to make sense. Not the silence of fear or loneliness, but the one that comes after the internal cleaning. A kind of peace that doesn't shout, doesn't need to prove itself. A presence, a reunion. You look in the mirror and, for the first time in a long time, you don't see the edited version of yourself. You see you, with wrinkles, flaws, memories, scars. You see the sparkle in your eyes, and also the pain hidden in the corners of your mouth. But most of all, you see someone who's no longer trying to fit. Someone who, even without all the answers, decided to live with more wholeness. And that recognition is liberating, because now you're no longer trying to impress, or convince, or please. You just are, and that's enough. It's like taking off armor after years of war and finally feeling the wind on your skin. You discover you don't need much to be happy. A hot coffee, a sincere conversation, a sunset already move you in a way that once went unnoticed. Life starts pulsing in small details. You start noticing simple things. The way someone holds a cup, the sound of rain, a hug that lasts 2 seconds longer. It's at this stage that you understand true freedom isn't about doing everything you want, but about not depending on anything to be who you are. And yet, this reunion isn't the end of the journey. It's the point where everything starts to make sense, where the past, even with its pains, gains purpose, where the present becomes a sacred space, where the future stops being a burden and becomes a possibility. You realize you no longer need to chase validation. You're no longer a prisoner of others' gaze. And in freeing yourself from that, something magical happens. You start attracting people, experiences, and situations that resonate with your new frequency. It's as if the universe responds to your authenticity. And in this silent, natural, honest movement, you start to understand what it truly means to live outside the cave. But there's still a choice to be made. When the light becomes part of you, a new question arises. Should I go back and try to help others or continue my journey alone? It's not a simple question, because now you know not everyone wants to be saved. Not everyone is ready to question their own shadows. And that in itself is a pain, realizing that love also means knowing how to wait. That what liberates you won't always liberate others, and that there are moments when compassion demands more silence than words. The desire to help is immense, but wisdom lies in not becoming arrogant, in not forgetting that once you too believed in the wall. Still, some insist on going back, on lighting small sparks in the dark, even at the risk of being misunderstood. And perhaps that's the noblest mission of those who've awakened. Not to evangelize, not to impose, but to inspire. To live in such a way that your presence becomes an invitation, a silent reminder that there's something beyond. And that doesn't require speeches. It requires posture. It requires coherence between what you say and what you do. Because in the end, the greatest revolution isn't shouting "wake up" to the world, but living with so much awareness that, just by being near, others feel the urge to change. But this choice to go back or move forward isn't final. It's remade every day, in every situation, in every new encounter. Sometimes you'll feel the need to protect yourself. Other times, you'll feel the need to extend a hand. Life outside the cave doesn't come with a manual. It's raw, complex, full of nuances, but it's also beautiful, intense, true. And when you understand that, you start honoring both silence and words, both solitude and sharing. You realize that living awake is, above all, accepting the dance between light and shadow, and that the next step will always be yours. Maybe the hardest, maybe the most beautiful, maybe the most transformative.